What's going on, guys? My name is Fusion, and I want to thank you guys for tuning in to Fusion Grows. Today, we're going to be making a seed starting mix from scratch using a few different components, and I'm also going to show you guys some cheaper alternatives, so you might want to stick around to the end of the video so you don't miss out on that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so the first thing we're going to add is a little bit controversial. Some people love it, some people hate it. But personally, I believe that as long as you harvest it responsibly, it's not really an issue. But you might have guessed it by now. We are talking about the infamous sphagnum peat moss. Specifically, the one that I'm going to be talking about today is this one that comes from our neighbors over in Canada. This stuff basically builds up in bogs and marshlands over time. As the moss dies, it accumulates on top of itself over time, and it builds up a layer that we refer to as peat. The problem is that in order for us to get to that layer, we cause a lot of disruption, sometimes flat out destruction to the environment. So if it's not done responsibly, you could do a lot of harm to the ecosystem. But I have researched this company and I know that they do things properly. And most of the time, if you get peat moss from Canada, they have some pretty strict rules. Alright, so peat moss is actually very spongy and fluffy. I'll show you guys a close-up so you guys can see better, but this stuff is actually really good at retaining moisture and improving aeration to the soil. However, if you let it dry out completely, it can actually become hydrophobic, and it can be pretty hard to rehydrate. It can be a little annoying sometimes, so always keep a little bit of moisture in it. Alright, so I got a tub here, and this is where we're going to be mixing up the soil. As far as the peat, we're shooting for about 30 to 35% total volume. So let's go ahead and get a few scoops now. So I got one scoop. I'm going to keep track of how many scoops I get so that way I can determine how much of each thing I'm putting. So that's 2, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll do one more. 8. There we go. So 8 scoops will equal 30%, let's say. That's what we'll say. 8 scoops of this equals 30%. Alright, so I just went and grabbed some gloves. I should have a mask too, but it's like 2 in the morning. I don't know where the masks are, and I'm not going to wake up my wife just to ask her that. So we're just going to do the old t-shirt method. But the next thing we're going to add is some dolomite lime. And the reason why we're doing that is because peat is naturally acidic. So a lot of the time what companies will do is that they'll amend it with something to neutralize the peat. However, you should check with the brand that you're buying to make sure that that's the case. In my case, mine is not amended. So we're going to have to amend it ourselves. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to scoop out about a cup. Yeah, I think a cup would be perfectly fine. We're going to scoop out a cup of this stuff right here. And the reason I want a mask is because it's very fine powder. So you don't want to get this stuff in your lungs. I know I don't. We got a nice healthy scoop right here. This measures out to 1 cup. We'll throw that in there. Keep throwing that in there. And then in a minute here, we'll go ahead and mix it all up. Alright, so I know that it looks like a lot, but it's really not. Once we get up in here and we mix it up real good, you'll see that it's just going to blend right in. Alright, that's nice and amended now. And mixing it through, I just realized that it's so dry. So let me go ahead and get a little bit of water. Alright, let's go ahead and pour some in there. And then let's mix that up. As I'm mixing through here, I'm grabbing and I'm squishing too. I'm squishing it. So that way it mixes. See, I grab and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. That way I'm mixing up that dolomite lime in there. And I'm also taking that moisture and I'm squeezing it into other particles too. Hey, Ruby? Hey, Tinky? Calm down. Alright, that should do it. That looks pretty mixed to me. That's the good stuff. But all right, so most people only use one type of growing medium, whether that's peat moss, coconut coir, these little blocks that they sell. But in my case, I'm actually gonna mix up both peat moss and coconut coir, which is the two most common ones that you usually find. So here I got a few bricks of coconut coir that came in the mail. And the one I got is Legigo Coconut Coir. It claims to be organic, natural, so I don't know. I just ordered this off of Amazon. We'll see. But before we can even use this stuff, we're gonna need to go ahead and rehydrate it. So let me pull you guys a little bit closer and show you guys how I do that. Alright, so nothing special here. This is just a good old-fashioned bucket. We're gonna use it to fluff up our coconut coir. So we're just gonna plop that in there. And by the way, if you didn't know, coconut coir is basically that outer fibrous shell from coconuts, and it gets shredded up and processed for this type of use. It's actually great for aeration and drainage, but it also has excellent water holding capacity, similar to peat moss. However, you do want to be careful with this stuff because sometimes it can come with a high salt content. So I suggest if you don't really know your source, you might want to rinse this stuff out first. I'm not going to do that. I'm not really too worried about it. I'm just going to take some hot water here. You want to make sure your water is at least warm. That way it will help this process go by a lot easier. So we're just going to take this, pour it right on top of that brick. Don't want to put too much because then I'm going to have to throw another brick in there. Which, honestly, I'm probably going to have to throw another brick in there anyway. Because for the volume that we're going for, I don't think one brick is going to be enough. Anyway, so I'm going to just get in here, turn this brick upside down so it can start taking up some moisture. And then I'm just take this brick here and try to break it. See if I can break it. Oh, there we go. Oof. And then basically that went all over the place. And then basically just, help it along so it can start absorbing that water. I think I'm going to need some more water. Let's go ahead and use the rest of the water we got. I can tell that it's starting to fluff up, especially the parts that were at the bottom. But it's not going to be enough. Let me go ahead and get some more water. Alright, we got some more water here. Go ahead and pour that on there. I don't want to do... I already went ahead and spilled most of it, so might as well just put the rest. Alright, I think I learned something. Next time I do this, instead of breaking it up the way I did, I'm going to just put the brick in there, put the water until it covers like half of the brick, and then just let that brick naturally soak up that water throughout the whole thing. I think that'll make it a lot easier to just break up and fluff out. But hey, we're already this far. We got to commit now. Alright, we got it nice and balanced. I believe this is give or take the amount of moisture that we're going for. But look at this stuff. It's nice and fluffy. It's airous. This is gonna be some good mix right here. So let's go ahead and add this to our mix now. Alright, so now that we got our coconut coir nice and hydrated, let's go ahead and shoot for about 20 to 25% coconut coir into our mix. So I believe we have 8 scoops of peat moss in there. So I think we should probably go for about 5 or 6 scoops. Alright, so here's 1 scoop. There's 2, 3, 4, 5. And honestly, we don't have a lot in here. We really don't, so we might as well use it all. Collect it all together with my hand. Put it in there. The last bit of it right here. Boom. Yep, exactly. So 6 scoops of coconut coir to 8 scoops of peat moss. Alright, so up next we're going to add something that improves oxygenation and aeration and drainage to the soil. Because this is a seed starting mix, we're talking about seedlings here. So they don't have very big sprawling root systems. You don't want your seedlings to be sitting in water too long because it could damage their roots. It can cause root rot, a bunch of different issues. dampening off. So to avoid that, we're going to solve that problem by adding in some perlite. All right, so for the perlite, I'm going for like 15-20%. So I don't know if my math is mathing, but I'm going to do 4 scoops of this stuff. Oh, by the way, fun fact about perlite, this stuff is actually made by heating up obsidian until it expands, kind of like popcorn. And then it's just bagged up and sold to us. So it's pretty cool. But anyway, we're going to take 4 scoops of this. Oh my God. Here, let me use the old t-shirt method. I wish I had a face mask right now, but I don't. So, 1 scoop. Oh my God, that's a lot. I think we're only gonna use like 3. 2, 3. Let me mix that up first, and then I'll tell you guys if we're gonna do 4 scoops or not. I wanna mix this stuff up first. Oh man. You know what? I think this is a pretty good amount, but just to be safe, I'm gonna add half a cup more, which it actually doesn't equate to a cup. I think this thing is like, yeah, this is 4 cups. So in reality, I'm adding 2 more cups. There we go. Oh God, there goes like another half a cup right there. So boom, let's mix that up real good. There we go. Man, if you could feel this soil, this stuff is nice and fluffy. I can tell it's gonna do a really good job as a seed starting mix. By the way, if you're making your own mix at home, sorry, I'm out of breath. By the way, if you're making your own seed starting mix at home, I suggest using like a tub or something wide, so that way you could really have space to mix it real good. Alright, so up next we've got vermiculite. This stuff, well, I have it in this bag here because my other bag tore, but I have a brand new bag that I can show you guys. Vermiculite. So this stuff is a mineral that's mined and then it's processed until it reaches the desirable size for horticulture. But basically, this stuff, vermiculite, is really good for water retention and mineral retention too. So we're going to be going for about 15% ish total volume in our soil because we don't want a lot of water retention. We want some good drainage, but the perlite's going to help with that. However, we do want some nutrient retention, so that's where the vermiculite comes in. All right, so I think I did like 4.5 scoops of perlite. So I think I'm gonna do 3.5 scoops of vermiculite. Let me go ahead and cover up with my homemade face mask here. Here we go. It kind of looks like sand, honestly, but this is a mineral. It's not sand. It's vermiculite. It looks like sand. Anyway, we got 1, 2, 3. Sprinkle a little extra, you know what I mean? I keep having to go over there and wash my hands because I forget that I have gloves right here. Alright, let's go ahead and get this vermiculite mixed up. Alright, there we go. This mix is really starting to take shape now. It looks like it has a lot of different components, which it does. It has the peat moss for moisture retention and aeration. It has the coconut coir for basically the same thing. The perlite for good drainage, and the vermiculite for moisture retention and nutrient retention. Alright, so the mix is looking pretty good so far. However, we're missing something vital, something critical. See, a seedling gets most of its energy from a seed. As soon as it comes out and it has the first leaf or 2, those leaves are actually created using the nutrients that it has stored within the seed itself. However, when you start seeing the plant create what's called as true leaves, that is when the plant actually starts looking for nutrients throughout the soil. And that is actually what we're lacking in our soil right now, is nutrients. So I have here one of my favorite composts in the world, directly from Maine. This stuff right here is compost blend, however, with lobster and crab. Now, why do we care about the lobster and the crab so much? Well, because the lobsters, the crabs, the shrimp, these things are crustaceans. And crustaceans, I don't even know how to say that word. They contain this thing called chitin, chitin. This stuff actually promotes healthy plant growth, like strong stems and stuff like that. But more importantly, it actually increases the plant's natural resistance to things like bacteria, fungi, and other kinds of diseases. So that's the reason why I'm adding this stuff here. I would use any other compost, honestly, as long as it's a high quality compost. But I want to have the benefit of chitin. So I'm using something that has lobster and crab meal. You can also get chitin from bugs, which, fun fact, the shell, the exoskeleton, and stuff like that of bugs actually contains a high amount of chitin. Bugs and stuff die, and that chitin gets absorbed within the soil, breaks down, and then gets uptaken by the plant. Anyway, so with this, I think we're gonna go for 8 cups of this stuff. We're gonna go for 8 cups of this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I really struggled with that one. Jeez. 7, and last but not least, 8. But honestly, funny enough, that was most of the bag. So it added up to what we were trying to put in there anyway. So I'm gonna just go ahead and get the last little bits out of the bag. And there we go. All right, so honestly, we could just go ahead and stop here and we would have an excellent soil mix. However, right here, you probably noticed it throughout the video that's been sitting on the corner of the table. Back in the day, I used to grow these plants that have specific needs throughout each stages of its life cycle. And honestly, most plants are the same way, but the ones that I was growing, it needed some special attention. So this here is a blend that is tailored for the vegetative cycle, which if you're growing things like vegetables, they go through a vegetative state where they basically focus on foliage, stems, leaves, roots, and then they switch over into the flowering, fruiting stage, I guess you could call it, where they basically focus on like developing its fruits and developing the vegetables or whatever. But anyway, this stuff is tailored for the beginning parts of the plant's life. It's high in nitrogen and things like that. Anyway, so because I have this stuff laying around, I might as well use some. We're gonna go in here. Oh, and by the way, if you want the recipe of how I make this vegetative state nutrient mix, I guess you could call it, leave a comment down below and I don't mind. I'll go ahead and make a video for you. But anyway, we're going to take the 1/4 cup and we're just going to sprinkle it through here. Oh man, this stuff right here. I'm going to have to put on my mask. So there's a 1/4 cup. Here's another 1/4 cup. So we're up to a 1/2 cup. Here is 3/4 of a cup. And then lastly, we are at 1 cup. And that's all we need. That's all we need because we're not going for a super soil here. Which, by the way, I do have a super soil recipe, which is really good. And I call it Dirt McGirt. So if you want me to make a video on that, leave a comment down below and I don't mind. I'll make a video specific to that. It's my own personal super soil mix. And I call it Dirt McGirt. Anyway, so we went ahead and threw a little bit of extra nutrients because I had it laying around anyway. But what that will do is it will actually add a diverse range of nutrients, and some of these nutrients are more bioavailable to the plant, and some take a little longer to break down. So that way, the seedlings will have some nutrients for as long as you keep them in there. Well, there you have it, guys. That right there is my very own seed starting mix. And as promised, for making it all the way to the end of the video, I'm going to give you guys a few cheaper alternatives that you can make from home without having to really break the bank. And some of these are actually free. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so let's go ahead and kick things off with used up potting soil. If you're a gardener, you've probably had a few plants die on you before. I might have a plant over here that died. Yep, you can see it. If you're a gardener, you've experienced this kind of thing before. And other times you might just have vegetables that you grew up in a pot. And once you harvest those vegetables, it leaves behind used soil, which is pretty low on nutrients. So most people just go ahead and throw it out and fill up the pot with fresh soil and plant a new plant in it. However, you don't have to do that, guys. You can save that soil and then use it to start seeds, because seedlings don't need many nutrients, at least at first, because most of the nutrition that the seedlings need are actually inside of the seed itself. So as soon as the plant emerges, that's when it's going to need nutrition from its soil. But it doesn't need a lot of it, so you can use used up potting soil. However, if you plan on keeping your plant inside of the cell for a while, then I just suggest amending it a little bit with a little bit of compost or maybe some organic slow release fertilizer. Those three components alone would make a really nice mix for your seed starting mix. And it would be a lot cheaper than going to the store and buying it already mixed from the store. Not only that, but you would get higher quality components and more bang for your buck. Because if you buy the perlite, the peat moss, and the compost separately, or worm castings, you would be able to make far more mix than you would if you just bought little bags from the store at a time. Alright, well, that's all I got for you guys today. If you feel like you learned anything or you just enjoyed this video, please leave a like or comment down below. And if you have any tips or tricks about starting seeds or seed starting soil mixes, definitely leave a comment down below. I am always happy to learn. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to Fusion Grows. I hope your gardens don't get eaten by crows, and at the end of the season, you reap what you sow. Happy growing, and have a wonderful day. I gotta work on that outro.